Hey guys, Brian Bradley from the Egoscue Method. I just finished up an amazing interview, podcast, whatever you want to call it, with Eric Bellens from the Resilient Minds podcast. I highly recommend it to everyone to listen to it. And if you can get some time to talk to him, it's an absolute game changer.
Welcome everybody to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm super humbled and excited to be sitting here with a dear friend of mine, Mr. Brian Bradley. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. And yes, I want everybody to rewind that and hear, dear friend. I mean,
I love it.
I'm American, he's Canadian. How can we not be dear friends?
Exactly, right? And for those of you that don't know this brilliant man, if you haven't been to any of Tony's UPWs or business masteries, he's there at the forefront teaching us how to really live healthier, pain-free lives and achieve complete fitness. This is his mission, helping millions of people learn how to do this. He's been a frequent speaker at a lot of Tony Robbins events, including others, industry events where he presents, consults, and conducts training with amazing, huge corporations, organizations, nonprofits on the topics of chronic pain, healthy living, and literally high level performance. In fact, such high level that his clients include Tony Robbins himself, a lot of his staff, Bulletproof Radio, YPO, the Seattle Study Club, and most importantly, the NFL players, MLB players, NBA, and MMA individuals in the UFC, including amazing individuals like Connor McGregor. So this has been really, an art for Brian. And Brian's been studying true biomechanics in the human anatomy using the Egoscue Method for more than 25 years now, brother, right?
Be 30 years this year.
Wow. And as the posture, pain, performance coach, and, really, an influential motivational speaker that really allows you to connect. He's spoken in more than 50 countries promoting a myriad of healthy principles for achieving success in all areas, personal and professional. Brian truly believes that real and lasting change can happen when we commit to health as a lifestyle. And I agree with this because I've seen this guy and he's all in on like what you can do with your body, your physiology to increase your life. His postural training, fitness experience, and engaging personality, which we'll get to know real quick here, will get people of all ages moving and digging deep to get their best results. Super blessed, humbled to have you, brother.
Bro, you've set the bar. Now I gotta wake up. Let's go.
Let's get in state.
Get up, start dancing.
I love it, my friend. It's funny, because literally, we're both coming out of, Tony's business mastery. You were there every day, getting everybody moving. You were getting everybody, back in the line and getting them, moving their bodies. And you just landed last night back in California.
Yeah, about right around 11:30, 12 o'clock, midnight out here. And then, I was on East Coast time because I was over there for almost 10 days. Your body gets acclimated to the East Coast. So when I land, it's really close to 3 a.m. But so let me start off with something. I get questions from people asking me, Brian, every morning, thank you for taking us through this. How do we get more of doing this every morning? All that stuff. And I have, places they can go and get our work and all that stuff. But it's a good question. How do I show up every morning with an energy level that's unsurpassed, in my opinion? And I'm talking about morning, right? Because a lot of people's mornings are, they're just, their bodies, minds, and spirits are kind of destroyed. It's not even a conscious effort. It's a belief system. It's not gee, I hope I can do great today. It's an absolutely ingrained belief system that, my great parents, probably instilled to me. And then, I just took it from there. I had great brothers, and I still do have great brothers and sisters that instilled that. I have one brother, 3 sisters. So, you know, I was basically raised by chicks, which is good because I have more hair products than anybody I know. And secondly, I sit down to pee just for comfort. Meanwhile, it was threatened to me that they'll kill me because if I get urine on the seat, then I'm dead. But ideally, you wake up every morning in a state where you have to ask yourself. That's why during business mastery stuff, I had them close their eyes. And you were there. I said, okay, Eric, where are you left to right in your balance? You know, when you think about balance is number 1. Where am I today? Am I loaded left? Am I loaded right? Am I loaded front, back? Well, I'm kind of off. And then we were to if I'm sitting here like this and my head's cocked over like that, my shoulders up like this, my chest is rounded where all this is wrinkles in here. And if you can see the rest of my body, it's kind of like all humped over. Then I'm really not going to be congruent and I'm not going to be honest with the people that are on here listening. What you have to look at is, I'm looking at this book over here and it just keeps catching my eye, so I have to pull it out, called Why We Get Sick. Listen, it's a great book, Why We Get Sick. I get it. But it's not a compelling title. You know what I mean? I'm looking at the information and I'm going, I love the book because it's giving me some information that I can talk about, but it's why we get sick. An interesting thing would be why we allow ourselves to get sick. We all are going to get a cold. You could even get COVID, recover from it, all this stuff. I get it. But it's like when we were going through the pain-free book. This versus speaking of sickness is a whole different thing. Pain.
It's talking about the postural. Love it.
So when you start thinking about and you're an expert in this stuff, you know, you and I have talked 100 times about this. Where your mind goes, sometimes and a lot of times your heart follows. And Pete Egoscue and I talk about this all the time. He said, yeah, you can't give away what you don't have, which of course, you know, is a statement by somebody way more qualified than either one of us to say, meaning Pete and I. But wherever you go, there you are. What you focus on expands. All these different things coming up from these other strategic motivational experts. But if you truly believe in them, then what's it going to take if I said to you, Eric, every morning, I want you and your audience to be at 110%. Because I gave this to Luke Wren too, talking about the same idea. Bro, you got to be at 110%. People expect it from you. They expect it. In fact, I'm so down on myself, I'm going to talk to Eric. I'm going to talk to Luke because I need to suck on their energy teat and go, I need to get out there and get some more energy. But they can't produce it themselves. Why is that? Because it takes one thing. What is it?
Our state, our physiology.
But state and physiology, a lot of times when I'm talking to Tony, he wants it to be an unconscious line of thinking sometimes.
True.
You shouldn't have to wake up and go, time to make the coffee, time to go do this. We're going out to the mines. We're going to be, you know, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be drilling. No, it's the 7 dwarves, dude. They're getting up and they're singing every morning. Well, except for Dopey. Yeah. Still, it's like or is it Sleepy? But either way, they're waking up going, here we go. Like if I could rewrite the 7 dwarves, they'd be like, here we go, motherfucker. We're ready to go. Of course, that would be a non-G-rated version. But it's the idea of energy. If your energy is down, then how do you expect to make a change that becomes a transformation? You can talk about it all day and every day that you want, but you're just talking. Which is why the physiology is so important. I was on the plane last night rereading this book again called the SOAS book, and I have all these places earmarked in here going, wow, it's, you know, such a good talk because the SOAS is the on switch for your energy. But for us, it's the on work to get your core to change. And if you saw where it was, the nerve plexus that's right there, that's your gut brain. You want to turn on your gut brain, you better wake up the king.
So this is important, I think, because, you know, for those that have never known what the SOAS is, and, you know, the Egoscue method and how you're serving, how it really impactful the way that you serve. I think it's important that the way that you help people really change their posture and like the SOAS muscle and all this is so profound and important. Before we go there, I really would love your journey and to share what allowed you, because I always talk about like our X factors, right? And how and essentially calling them our experiences contribute to our big why, our big purpose. And, you know, this, you know, you've been in, like you mentioned, over 30 years now doing what you do, you know, here with the Egoscue Method and really amplifying people's peak state performance to the next level. Now, in fact, you work with the best one of all, Mr. Tony Robbins, right? So emphasizing this, what was it that, you know, there must have been a defining moment in your experience that was like, I need to go and I need to like start doing this either on myself or other people, because I'm seeing something that's common. This experience in my life has now driven me to follow through and create a big why, a big purpose, a big opportunity. And if you don't mind sharing that, I think people will relate so profoundly, because I'm sure there's people out there that are going through what you may have experienced.
Okay, so let me start with what I do. What I do is this: get your body back to that. That's all. That's all I do. And that's the great thing about a Pete Egoscue walking in here, and he would say, guys, I'm not smart enough.
And for those that are just listening, you know, he pointed at getting your posture really focused, you know, in alignment.
Yeah, you got to have for example, the minute I go to an NFL team or look at a Major League Baseball player, literally the second that I approach them, before they know that we're doing an eval, I've already made my evaluation. That's how freaking good I am at what I do. Now, what I mean by that is, okay, Brian, enough about you. No, I mean it. Pete Egoscue has literally opened up the world of physiology to a place where people have never gone before. I mean, this sounds like a Star Trek thing, but it's honestly, when you look at, and this is what I ran into 30 years ago. Look, these two pictures right here of the front view posture and the side view posture, correct posture. That's in any physiology book that's out there if you've done medical training. Every doc, nurse, PT, OT, personal trainer, physical therapist, they're all going, yeah, we go for the same thing too. I get it. But you got to live it. You got to commit to that one point, because so many people do 12,000 things and they're good at them. But you've already heard do 12 things and be unbelievable at them. Now you become a game changer. When I ran into Pete Egoscue, I was in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. We opened up a clinic with Jack Nicklaus, the greatest golfer of all time. Not Jack Nicholson, so don't picture the guy putting the axe through the door during, you know, the Shining. Jack Nicklaus, the golfer. The moment for me was, I'm going to take this job because my physical therapist I was working with said, yeah, you might be interested. I went over, took it. Hey, cool, they have insurance, they do this. All right, this is cool. You know, going through my pragmatic brain going, okay, this will pay for my house, this will do this. We all take those jobs for those reasons when you're 21 or 22.
Yep.
When I look at it now, I got so darn lucky, dude, because I ran into a guy who was no hold barred, Marine Corps major, political science degree, zero medical training, which I would have come in there with blinders on like this from university training, but he took the blinders off and said, what if? And it's that what if question. So when somebody comes in with back pain, neck pain, knee pain, sciatic pain, or they're doing performance stuff and they're not getting the results they're looking for, that's what drives me crazy, is that pain is fleeting a lot of times. You could even wait out pain a little bit. You wait 6-8 weeks, you could have zero pain. That's what studies show a lot of times. I don't believe it, because it's always going to come back and rear its ugly head again. But where I had my aha moment was when he said, what if there was another way to go about this? And that's what university training doesn't teach you. They have this very straight ahead line of thinking that an injury is an injury rather than an injury is an opportunity. And taking someone from point A to point B, it's an absolute game changer. So for me, when Pete Egoscue said, what if this? Then it was that moment where you go, wait a second. He's right, what if? but it took me to get out of my own way, Eric. And as a dude, you understand this. You know, you're a big dude. You take pride in how you look and feel and what you train. I get it. I wish I had that same thing. That's why I wear so many layers of clothes so you can't see what's underneath. But at the same time, you know, you look at it and go, if I can put that much time into myself, can you imagine if I started reallocating that resource toward other people? And Eric, it absolutely fed my significance from the beginning. Dude, I got so high off the idea of taking somebody out of pain. But the great thing is I never took it personally. For some reason, I never went, look what I did. It was always, look what you discovered. And that fell so straight in line with Tony Robbins when I first worked with him. He was one of my first clients I ever worked on. Got flipped off of a polo horse, walks into the clinic. I called Pete Egoscue up, of course, not on a cell phone, and said, who the hell did you just send me? He's like, well, it's Tony Robbins. But I go, yeah, but he's on the ground, dude, and he keeps hitting himself. And he's doing his power move. You know, he's doing this kind of stuff. He has to shoot like some infomercial the next day. And I'm like, and not being familiar with infomercials, I was like, yeah, okay, well, suck it up and shoot the freaking infomercial. But he got off the ground and went back from 5'7" to 6'7", and that was his aha moment. And dude, you want to talk about a guy who just wouldn't stop. And that's when he was like, okay, everybody that I run into needs this. When can I see you guys again? And that was one of those meetings that, Eric, let's say I was working with your mom or dad, they'd go, oh, you know what, sweetheart, I feel better. And you're like, yeah, that's really good. But when somebody says, I feel better, and puts it on a bullhorn and starts doing this, like what Jack did in the golf world, dude, it was an absolute game changer. And for me, it was no longer about what you do. Now I truly understood the why. And that is, you know, what a lot of your people and you guys come together, and a lot of us are really still searching for that. When you find it, you know it. And that was an absolute game-changing moment for me.
And since that why now, because that was what, 30 years ago? That why, that defining moment? Was it like that moment with?
This looked a lot different 30 years ago.
I don't know. You look pretty young there, dude. I don't know, man.
That's the only reason why I hang out with you, for that lie right there. Thank you.
My brother. So tell me this, because if you could send, you know, somebody that, you know, is maybe just getting started in really understanding how powerful their physiology could actually have an effect on their overall capacity to emphasize, you know, not only just, you know, their mind, their belief system in themselves, you know, their relationships with their beloveds, their experiences with their friends, their businesses. What would you tell them? What could they take away right now, Brian, from you, and, you know, having to implemented action right now as they sit here listening to maybe this podcast or watching it live? You know, really, what would be a process that you could give them, and maybe you could describe that process in detail a little bit before we actually give it to them. So maybe that would be a great thing. Describe the process, and then we can actually go into like something that they can take away from it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think all podcasts need to give the listener or watcher something that they can implement instantly. I think that's a lot of the mistakes people talk about. They want to talk, and I just think you have to be able to give something to somebody. For example, you know, Keith Cunningham this weekend, or David Meerman Scott, you know, when he was talking about social media stuff, and somebody came in and they're like, well, you know, your social media is your social media, but if they don't see you and who you are in your personal life sometimes, and I'm not saying, yeah, here's me at the beach, but that's why I posted something about my dog, who's just a badass, by the way, you know, and I put him in camouflage and I have him up there making his presidential pose. And then people will get on there and go, okay, this guy's human. And every dog owner then falls in love with you, you know, because you're in a special group at that point. Every time that we do this kind of stuff, we have to give something. So look, the process of, are you asking about the process of Egoscue, like what we actually do, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, what can somebody do to get themselves into like a better physiological state so that they can actually, maybe if they're sitting at home or listening to this right now, what can they do to put themselves in a better feeling state to really go out there and transition that into
Got it.
a moment that can change something for them.
Okay.
Because you've given, like, I know your process, right? Like, you've done so many processes at the events, and I love it. And I think that translates. And I think there's more people out there that really needs to kind of know about it or understand it or understand the process of why it's so powerful, rather than just talking about the Egoscue. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen, it's everybody. Peloton has had record sales. Echelon has had record sales, meaning another bike. There's a bike out of Canada or a bike out of the UK called the Carol bike, which, by the way, I love them. The company's amazing, but the bike is an 8-minute workout with 2 20-second sprints, and the workout's done, but your metabolic rate goes up. But I have a bike back here, for example, and you and I are sitting right now. And most of your listeners are sitting right now. And sitting was named the new smoking. Sitting is the new cancer. Guess what, guys? COVID-19's here. You've been sitting for the last 6 months now. 90% drop in movement. If nobody else is alarmed by that, at least I'm alarmed by that. Because what it's done for the physiological is what it's going to do to the psychological. Well, that's why I have you stand up, check your balance. Where are you? Even in your chair right now, where are you? I'm sitting in a chair built by the lowest bidder. Listen, I mean, all it does is creak and squeak. And I have a kneeling chair back here that I'm building this week. My desk goes up to 6.5 feet. So I can do it standing also. I'm adding the variety because honestly, it's not that I have to, but it's that it's a mindset change. When you change your environment, everything else changes. So when we're looking at what Egoscue does and what it can do for you and your aha moment with Egoscue, it has to come down to one thing. It is the simplest form of foundational movement exercise that in its simplest form, 1 exercise a day times 365 days a year, if that's all you could give, like the arm circles or the elbow curls or something that I'll get on here and show when people watch it, they can see it. Done from kneeling or seated or standing, your choice. Just by changing the foundational position, it fires a different group of muscles. And hey, Brian, why do we need to do that? Great question. I'm glad you guys asked. Because we're talking about not being sick. We're talking about next level performance. Like, this is not something that I'm joking around about. Like, I know I have a stupid Tommy Boy sense of humor. God bless Chris Farley. But I look at it and say, you got to get serious about you, especially in this time. Because if your lung tissue, for example, is affected, not infected, if it's affected by your posture being here, and this is where we are sitting. So for those of you listening, just round your back over as much as you can and let your head go forward. That's where we are all the time now. Until we say, wait, I'm going to be on camera, then I'm going to sit up and I'm going to put my chest out. What if you didn't have to think about it? So the process, or as you would say, the process of this is getting someone to get out of their own way and get a true belief system that there might be an answer out here for me, not from just a pain standpoint. Yeah, that's our book, Pain Free, but from a movement and quality movement standpoint, so that every step you take, every step where your heel hits the ground walking, your glute fires, your quad fires, your lateral hip fires, and especially your deep hip flexor fires as your leg is swinging. And the key to that is you become that hip-driven, let me say it again, hip-driven athlete that you always wanted to be. So when my baseball player says, man, my elbow hurts and I'm only throwing 86. Well, stop throwing with your arms. Literally, I say that. Just stop throwing with your arm. You're telling a baseball player to stop throwing with his arm. But I'm not saying start throwing with your leg. But in general, your hips and legs have a relationship with the ground, and they create that rotation, which then throws the ball, which was what Connor McGregor understood very quickly, one of the smartest athletes I've ever had the privilege of working with. He picked up on it in one day, 12 days out from the cowboy fight, and he wins in 40-some seconds. And he hit the guy with his shoulder. Go back and watch the fight. He's here, and he gets in close, and he comes up and hits him with his AC joint right here on the top of his shoulder 4 times in the face. Why is that so profound? Because to someone like me, who saw him in the Khabib fight, he couldn't have hit anybody with that shoulder in the Khabib fight, based on where his pelvis was, based on where it was. Secondly, you throw a punch, you throw a ball, and you live at next level when your pelvis becomes your primary mover. And here's one thing to check on. When you're on the toilet, so everybody close your eyes unless you're driving. Close your eyes and picture yourself on the toilet doing your business. Don't smile. Eric, don't smile. Eric. Okay, so close your eyes. And now, okay, your business is done. Now get up. Picture yourself getting up. What did you do first to get up? You didn't plant your legs and stand up. You planted your arms on your legs or on a sink or on something else to help you get up. You want to start dying early? Keep getting off the toilet like that. Because you're literally chipping away at your function. And the only time a banister should be used while walking up a stair is if you have to. But a lot of times people get on the banister and pull themselves up. And what's that, buddy?
They're not using their pelvis to walk up the stairs.
Correct. And with zero judgment here, Eric, with zero judgment, I don't look at it and go, you're doing it wrong. I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, they don't even know what an opportunity to educate right now. So you go back to Chet Holmes' book, you start talking about education-based marketing. Bro, when you teach someone something they don't know, they're with you forever.
Of course, absolutely.
Rather than saying, look how cool Egoscue is. It's no. Let's do a couple tests to see how you get off the toilet. Bend over, touch your toes. Where's your balance? And how do you walk upstairs? And then you tie that to, you realize those are all markers of a person leading themselves into chronic back pain or dis-ease. And then we look at the book and say, why do we get sick? And we look for answers and we keep searching when all of it is right at the base of what you're sitting on right now. I can't stress enough the importance of that muscle right there. It's called PSOAS for those of you who want to look it up on Google. PSOAS. It's the only muscle in the human body that attaches to the leg, comes through the pelvis, and attaches to the bodies of the vertebrae in your lumbar spine and one of your thoracic spine. And in plain English, it's the king. In plain English, it's the king. Now, for those, go ahead.
No, it's all good. So tell me, why do you think that not more people know or want to know or are not curious to know about the power of the king or how this can actually going back? Because what I'm recognizing, and there's a common denominator in anything that we do, whether it's mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, to continue moving forward, to find. And you talked about it in such a beautiful way of like educating, right? And in educating ourselves or failing and being resilient and coming back and recognizing what didn't work and changing our approach. So do you think when we're going through these pains or these problems, that it's a necessary evil, so to speak, that we need to actually go through to recognize, And in this case, recognize what we need from our king, from the psoas.
Look, when you see this picture, and I showed this to Connor at the UFC in Vegas, and I said, I'm just going to show you one picture. Don't get pissed. I don't want to get punched. Okay, let's not be violent here. But you had no chance in this fight.
Oh yeah, you see, wow, and for those of you that are not seeing this, he's so crouched over against Khabib right now, like the picture that there's an arrow, and literally he's so crouched over where his shoulders are literally coming forward ahead of his face.
And somebody said, well, that was his normal walk.
Wow.
But what's missing?
Yeah, his hips are not forward at all. They're back.
Look at the development of his upper body versus the development of no glute, no lateral glute. And I can promise you, if there's no glute, there's no hip flexor, psoas, zero. And the minute he saw it, I could see it. He went, because he went back to that moment. Third round, second round, first round. I mean, it's God provided this for me, dude. I'm not kidding you. It's the only UFC fight I've ever purchased. Out of all UFC fights, I purchased that fight. And I had 15 kids in my house, my son and all of his friends. I'm not a big UFC guy. Like, I don't want to hear that on people's faces. I'm not a big fan. I'm more of a fan of UFC than I am of boxing because it's just not the constant battering and beatdown. But I was watching the fight and I'm going, oh my God. And I'd hit pause and they were like, no, we got to see the fight live. And I said, it's live, guys, but I got to get this on film. You have no idea how valuable this is to me. Because I took that picture off of a video, sent it to Tony and said, bro, you've got to get this to Joe Rogan, or you got to get this to Connor's people. And he said, I'll get it to Connor's camp eventually. So I sent him 3 or 4 pictures. And then I got the call. Can you go to Vegas this week to see Connor? And I'm like, dude, yeah. It's a 5-hour drive or a 1-hour flight. Let's go. Because now I had my opportunity to take a guy who's the greatest of all time. Well, at least if you ask him, right? He's the greatest of all time. And I love that. And you start thinking, how can you impact it? You know what the cool part is? I've worked with so many of these guys, you know, from the high to the billionaires to all that stuff. I just don't give a shit anymore. Because I'm telling you right now, guys, just for all of you to hear it, they all poop like you do. They all do. They're human beings. And a lot of times they don't want to be put on these pedestals. I talk to them. They want some normalcy. My NFL guys, they want to be able to go out to a movie theater and not get, quote, attacked by people asking them for this or that. Well, I don't know, it comes with the field. But the idea behind giving them the unfair advantage by showing someone something they don't know and then letting them realize it, letting them feel it. So Eric, you've gone through probably the emotional thing that we've done before where I said, stand up. I want you to feel the worst case scenario that's ever happened to you. So let's do it just while people can sit here for a second. If you close your eyes, and again, don't be driving a car when you're doing this, and go back to the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And those of you with kids who have gone through divorce, you know that that is probably one of the most painful things because death is easier because death has a finality to it. Versus divorce with kids never ends. So just go to that feeling. Go back to a feeling of whatever happened to you and absolutely feel it. And then give it a color. Okay, open up your eyes. What was the color, Eric?
Black.
Of course. And it's the congruency on certain colors that I hear and stuff. It's an amazing thing. Now, let's just try something. And those of you who aren't watching this, I suggest you go back and watch this because you're going to see and hear, and this is not planned. Eric is one of the most honest human beings I've been around. So he'll go, Brian, you're full of it. Or he'll go, wow, why did this happen? One of those two. So now, Eric, let's just do very simply, let's just do elbow curls. But I want you got to do this first. get to the middle part of your chair, get your feet closer toward each other, feet straight, and fist width apart between your knees. Why do I do that? Because it fires this group. I don't want your feet turned out. So now roll your pelvis from sitting down on your tailbone in the worst posture when your mom would come up and smack you in the back of the head. Roll your pelvis off your tailbone to where it's underneath your hamstrings a little bit more, sitting up with a huge arch in your lower back. Hold that, don't let your knees go out. And now put your hands up here beside your temples, and let's close them and open them. Close them, let your knuckles roll. Eric, please touch your elbows together. Bro, touch your elbows. There, that's one. Come on, guys. Now those of you that are listening, you have to see the video. Come on. Come on. Now you know why women are given childbirth and not men, because they can handle it. Pull those elbows back, pull them closed. Now this is so profound for Eric right now. I'm not joking, guys, like how red your face is. I'm not joking.
Yeah,
keep held. Come on, give me 5 more. Keep that pelvis rolled up, Eric. Sit up, get off that tailbone. Keep those knees in, give me 3 more. Okay, drop your arms. Now just get back in your chair wherever you're comfortable. Now close your eyes and go to that worst case scenario again, the one, and I need you to feel it. I want you to be as deep down, dark, get into that place and feel it. The number 1 question you have to ask is, are you feeling it the same way that you did before? Does it have the same amount of control over you that it did before? And what's the difference in color? Open your eyes.
So I definitely don't feel as, like I couldn't even get down to that lowest place, even as close. And the color definitely wasn't black. It was, I would call it actually more like a deep blue rather than black. And it felt better because I didn't feel like it was affecting. I was almost like watching it. I wasn't in it.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
That's the key. And that's the key. When you can get your pelvis into the right place, and Eastern medicine, like Master Ko would talk about the different chakras in the body and where's your chi. When your chi is off, your energy's off, your chi is off, and you go, gee, I'm going to get my chi back and my energy back. No, you can't just take a 5-hour energy drink and get your energy back. That's a false drug addicted feeling. What you need to realize is that you have it in you, but you got to get your body out of the way, clear the road. And what you did by just doing this and me forcing you to touch your elbows together, right now, just how's it feel sitting in that chair compared to 5 minutes ago?
I honestly, like I'm sitting more straightforward, and it doesn't hurt me. Like, not that it was hurting me before, but I feel comfortable.
Okay, so now I have another question. You're the podcast host. You go into a podcast with your elbows that can't touch. I promise you, you aren't as congruent as you want to be on Resilient Minds podcast. You're not the person who you are right now.
I love
because
it.
right now, I guarantee you, and we're going to experiment. You can tell me, no, I'm full of shit or not. What question comes to mind right now that you want to ask that you weren't asking before? Or forget about me. What do you want to know?
To me, this is profound because it gives you an opportunity to go a little bit deeper. And I think for me, it's like, how powerful can even the quality of our questions become when we're able to actually sit in our bodies a little bit more clear. So for me, like, immediately I think when you say, what do you want to know, is like, how the heck is that possible? You know, like, why is this something that seems to be like a lost art? And why isn't more people talking about it?
I agree. I absolutely agree. And that's what I love about Pete Egoscue, is that he opened up my mind to forget what the books told you. What do you feel? What do you feel?
Yeah.
And when you get a customer, a client, patient in your medical world to a place of feeling, what do you think about the diagnosis of spondylolisthesis? What do you think this girl, what do you think her mother did when she walked in and said, "Here, sweetheart, here's your spine"? Imagine if that was your daughter.
And her spine's out of whack.
Well, she was diagnosed with scoliosis, which is the lateral curve of the spine.
Okay.
Instantly, I take this little girl going into middle school. I say this, "Wow, high five, girl." And she's like, "Oh, okay." You know, because she's in that significance place, like, I'm scared, but he's high fiving me. Okay, great. And then I say to her, I want you to know two things. I'm not your friend. Your friends will tell you what you want to hear. I'm now going to tell you what you need to hear. That's the great place that I'm coming from. By the end, Jennifer, we will be friends. I promise you, because your body and mind will have no choice when it starts to move back toward this straight human body. Are we going to get her to be perfectly straight? No, but I can tell you this. Here's her own growth in 2 weeks of her doing the work, before and after.
Yeah, she looks a lot better and is a little bit more straight. You touched on something here that was really profound, that you're not their friend, but you will be their friend. So what do you think that shows up in people's lives when you're serving them in you know, whether you're treating them or anything like this? And you mentioned you know, you deal with amazing athletes or billionaires or you know, Tony or Connor or any of these like celebrities. Where is it that, you know, as a result of that resilience in somebody's body, and because there's and why I'm emphasizing the resilience, because they continue to push and persevere and emphasize that, listen, this is going to be hard. It's just like me touching the elbows, right? It's like the resilience of like willing to push no matter even how comfortable, and then getting the you know, the power questions, the quality questions, or the quality results in their body. What do you think is the fine line of like people? Is there a fine line of people not seeing that, you know, it's not about being a friend, it's about getting sometimes the result that you're looking to achieve?
Well, first of all, they have to trust. And it's a way of, look, you either love me or you don't. Okay, that's all there is to it. And I am not asking you guys to love me. That I don't need it. I'm here to tell you the truth. That's why when in the intro you said Brian's been studying true biomechanics. There's a lot of bullshit out there in the rehab and strength and conditioning world. And frankly, I'm effing tired of it. You guys.
So when people have individual, like when there's individuals out there that have tremendous you know, or opposite points of view from you, how do you respond to that?
Perfect. Amazing. Are you happy when you get a gift?
Of course.
Are you ever unhappy when you get a gift? Not really. Like, here's a gift. But listen, I can put a bow and wrapping paper around a turd in a box. Okay? I can take a dump in a box and give it to you all wrapped up and go, here's a gift. And you're going to go, you gave me a pile of poo. That's a metaphor, people, for all of our emotional stuff we dump on people too. But I'm the one receiving it. So I have a choice. Hey, Brian, you don't know what you're talking about. I literally had a doctor at a UPW in LA come by my table, listen for about 10 minutes, And he literally whipped me both fingers and the middle finger. I had 50 people there. He whipped me the bird and said, "You are so full of shit. I have never heard anybody blah, 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 blah." And I said, well, and I just smiled and I said, well, in my mind, I said this: thank you for the gift, but no thank you. Because if I accept his fight as a gift, it never gets control of my emotion, ever. And I've watched Pete Egoscue fight the American Medical Association, California Medical Board, blah, blah. And this guy's a combat veteran from Vietnam, which is where the method started. He watched a woman, how he knew the body was so resilient, where the medical field's got to wrap their head around this one day. It can do anything. The woman took the rice bag off the top of her head, unwrapped herself, gave birth, squatting down, wrapped up the baby, picked up the rice, and walked back to her village. Wow. And at that moment, he's going, my God, don't, and he never forgot it. But when he started going down this work, he said, there's nothing the human body can't do. I have the luxury of knowing that, but it doesn't do that person any good unless I can find a way to educate them. One of the ways of educating them is starting off the conversation saying this: there might be some things that I'm going to talk about that could piss you off. And I'm okay with you leaving. Sooner or later, you'll come back because somebody's going to teach or show you the truth down the road. So when you look at this kind of stuff, Eric, it's Tony Robbins, for example. Who the hell in the world, in Tony's world, is going to say, Tony, you're full of shit? If you're truly his friend, and I mean truly his friend, the Paul Tudor Joneses, the Pete Egoscues, the Brian Bradleys, the Billy Becks, his wife, they're going to call him on stuff because sometimes the blinder might be up where he doesn't see it. The guy's human. You know, he does superhuman things, I can tell you that. But you got to remember, this guy is still human. We all watched it when he came out in the wheelchair, when he had the mercury poisoning and all the blood plasma stuff going on years ago.
In Australia.
It was a very interesting time in his life, very interesting time in all of our lives going, is he going to be okay? Yeah. Well, in my mind, it was, oh God, thank you for putting his ass in a wheelchair. Thank you. Because now I can start the increase in communication to him going, what an opportunity lies in front of us. Wow, dude. Thank you for the gift, God. Because Tony needed to slow his ass down a little bit. Yeah. COVID-19 has been a massive gift for that guy. All of us, if we choose to see it that way. And listen, guys, I have a third cousin that passed away who I knew. To watch my great aunt, who was very best friends with this guy, go through his death, and to see what's happening with people. I have a 17-year-old girl down the street. She passed away from COVID with underlying conditions. This thing is real, right? But you can respect it. And you can also go, okay, I can't control anything. Control is an illusion. Thank you, Bruce Lee. But you're looking at this going, I refuse to give in to something like this. I will live my life in a way that is giving, receiving, giving, receiving, giving, 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 receiving, because you can't just give, otherwise everybody's just taking everything from you. Yeah. That's why I was to watch you physiologically just now go through the negative place where you went to in life, then to go back to that negative place and know that it's not going to have the same hook as deep in the side of your mouth like a fish caught forever, right? I knew that it was lesser as it relates to its impact on you. Yeah. And all that comes from how? Because your upper body changes position. Your diaphragm sits right here and allows you to breathe better. Eastern medicine would say, Brian, those are great, but the central chakra is right there also. So this is an absolute belief system that East meeting West is so congruent, where when you hear Tony say, or you guys who are out there in the coaching world say, it's great that you want change and you want a transformation, but what is your physiological anchor to that? I don't know how to be more straightforward than we are not bullshitting people when You change your pelvis, your life is going to change. Get ready.
I think that's in like the consciousness, your own consciousness. And as we transition, where you said East and West comes together, I think there's a massive shift where, you know, the physiology and the state of awareness and this consciousness comes together, and it really manifests into the world. So, you know, it really does become this determinant factor in creating success, right? In every area of your life. I really believe that, especially our bodies. I mean, you know how much I love to, like, you know, stay fit and be active and stay healthy, you know, and nonetheless, I realize that there's still so much more that I can do. And what we don't know, we don't know. And it's fascinating once we start opening ourselves up to these possibilities, we are given a clear path to success. And speaking of that path, go ahead.
No, you please. Well, let me just talk about it real quick. And remember that thought coming back. Speaking of that path, we were talking about sitting as the new smoking before. Guys, embrace the shit out of it. I love sitting. Like, to me, it's like, phew, yeah. But the physiology behind sitting is there's actually more pressure on your lower back, more chance of injury in a sitting position than there is in standing. But we don't have the conditioning to be able to stand as long as we used to. And so this will be for your female listeners and the guys too, but the guys don't talk about this. If you truly want to have the body that you desire, then you have got to get your ass moving. And I don't mean just get up and move. I mean truly get your glutes and your psoas and your deep stabilizers of your hip joint called the rotator cuff, but you have a group of them in your hip, and then your abdominal wall. You have all of these things, the erectors in your back versus the abdominals on the front. All of these things encompass what somebody would say is the core. But there's one on switch, click. There's one circuit breaker, click. You got to turn on the circuit breaker. And it's the psoas muscle. And for those of you who are trying to get that body that you want, if you are circumventing that muscle, you are creating a short, tight, weak psoas that becomes like beef jerky and dried out. And we got to rehydrate it by moving it, not by stretching it, not by digging your knuckles into it. We got to get it to happen. And by the way, every emotion that you have, when you're having a shitty day, assume this: oh, I'm having a shitty day, and it's okay, but I'm affecting my psoas. What could I do from Egoscue? Something as simple as the elbow curl sitting, and all of a sudden your crappy day turns into a little bit of a rainbow, a little bit of sunrise coming. Hey, you know what? It's not so cloudy. So where we fall in line with everything that happened at Business Mastery is I was there to wake people's minds and hearts up, and they thought it was about their glutes and the Running Man. No.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so much more. So much more. And I think there's so many people that see, that make that connection after the fact in tremendous way. And I really believe that you've given us, like, you know, a tremendous and clear path to success when it comes to really understanding how that mind-body connection can happen. What do you think is the one reason why people fail?
Okay. I don't believe there's a such thing.
Sweet. I love it.
I don't believe failure exists. And I honestly believe that. Okay, let's go to relationships. And trust me, I've gone through this bullshit where you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning going, how did I lose this? How did I lose this relationship? How did I, the guy, the control, how did I lose control of this? So there are days where, you know, just hear this for everybody out there. Your spouse is going to drive you effing bananas. It's okay. It's supposed to happen that day. And just say to yourself this too shall pass. This too shall pass. This is just temporary. And then you say to yourself this, what if I went back to the day that we met? Like Eric, you and I have been, go back to the day that you met me. I remember it. You walked up to my, somebody delivered you to my booth, and I remember it very vividly. You go back to that, wow, there's a great energy between the two, and we're finally getting on a podcast now. How many years later?
Okay. Yeah.
But it's happening at the right moment. But you go back, and I know this makes a lot of dudes uncomfortable because they're like, oh, two dudes had a moment. I'm actually okay with it, right? Exactly. Okay. So look at this kind of stuff and go, I have a friend, Rob Roll, who is a senior leader. You know Rob? Kind of the same Rob.
I probably, if I saw his face, yeah.
A lot more gray. Rob, a lot more gray. I get it. He'll tell you that I caused it. But the day that we met, I can go back and tell you word for word what was said. Because it was that profound of a meeting between what we had in common in our lives and where we came to and what he's embraced and what he's learned and what I've learned and what we've taught each other. And that every opportunity of failure, if you have to give it a label, give it failure. I learned a long time ago from Pete that why is it a failure? Why does it have to be something amazing? Why does
successful failure?
Yeah, it's a successful failure, an educational failure, an opportunistic failure. What am I supposed to learn? So when my friend will come up and go, yeah, my wife's doing this, blah, 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 we're done. And I said, hey, I just have a question for you. And just in fact, one of my therapists, I told him this the other day. Remember the day that you two met. Go back to that first couple weeks. Take that into the mediation or the discussion with your lawyers. And you will have a much more amicable outcome. That's your change in state. As soon as you're sitting outside the door, okay, do this. And boom, you walked in with a different mindset rather than F you, I'm going to crush you. It's, I'm still not happy. But when you're allowing a situation to control you like that, I can promise you're going to be contacting me about chronic pain sooner or later, because this muscle, again, get it through your head, this muscle again becomes like beef jerky, and it is the emotional connector in the body.
Wow. You've really taken my understanding even to a whole new level just through this whole experience together. And I think that there's probably a lot of people that really want to, know a little bit more of how to reach out to you, how to connect with you. Maybe if there's some resources you want to mention, you want to just let everybody know if they want to reach out to you, how they can connect with you or the Egoscue Instagram, whatever, any resources. And I'll put them in the show notes as well for anybody that's driving.
Absolutely. The first of all, it's and I know you don't have to understand the spelling, but it's the Egoscue Method on Facebook, at Egoscue Method on Instagram, EGOSCUE Method. For me personally, I have one Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which are The Brian Bradley. And like I tell you, everybody on every podcast, it's under The Brian Bradley, because Brian Bradley was taken by a hockey player for the Tampa Bay Lightning and he wouldn't sell it to me. So I had to go with The, which makes it sound like I'm one of those Instagram narcissistic guys, dude. You'll never see me without my shirt on there going like this, guys. It's just not going to happen. So they can DM me right on there. And I really try to police that up as quickly as possible. If you don't hear from me, then get back to me again and again and again. You're bothering me when I don't hear from you. Like literally I'm one of those guys that I don't care. Eric, I know you have 60,000 people right now, and it'll be 600 eventually on Instagram. Yeah, I have 12,000. But I was going through my list the other day going, let me see who I know in here. And every single person I'm going, yeah, that person's from here. That person's from here. I know this person. This, literally I could probably tell you where 12,000 people came from. It's that authentic. And I'm new to the IG social media world and all that stuff. We talked about it 2 years ago. But I got into it 3 years ago as a competition against my kid. And I crushed his ass, by the way. I won. Thank you so much. And that's very important for a father, always to beat his kid. No, that's not important. Not at all. And, but I must say that he's, when when you're doing this kind of stuff on social media, just be as real and as personal as possible. You know, it's a, you're going to start seeing me talk about this bike over here, the Carol bike, because I've experimented with getting one. And I'm the anti-bike guy. You know, I came from downhill mountain biking at the national level, raced for McDonald's, Xerox. We had $10,000 bikes by the Intense motor, downhill bikes, $10,000 bikes, sick, until you hit a tree at 60 miles an hour and you realize the tree isn't moving. Dislocate your hip, break your tibia, blood clot your calf, tear your ACL twice in a year, tear your labrum in your hip, fracture your transverse process in your lower back, bulging disc in my neck, separate this shoulder, dislocate this shoulder, plus concussions, which now you understand what's wrong with me in my head. But you realize all these wrecks, you go, remember, are they failures? Did I fail at mountain biking? No, because you know what it saved me from doing? It saved me from dragging my son into BMX racing and downhill racing because it was important to me rather than finding out what his love is. And now he's on scholarship playing D1 soccer. So you look at this kind of stuff going, why we do what we do. And you really need to get down and dirty and ask why. And then do some of the exercises to change your state and then find out the truth. Because that's the key.
I love it, dude. And that is the biggest key, bro. And for those of you, you know, like you guys could see how brilliant of a man Brian is and how funny he is. And every single time I laughed nonstop. I love it. But check him out on Instagram. You know, this guy's a gem and I really have nothing but great things to say. He's a true dear friend of mine and I'm just grateful that we finally made the time to connect. Bro, I have a last question I want to ask you before we go. If you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
For some reason, I would go get a Big Mac at McDonald's, just jumped into my head. Just to piss people off. When they go like this, you ate at McDonald's on the last 3 days? Seriously? But if I had the last 3 days, I don't know, like a lot of people would say, I guess I'd contact all my friends and tell them that I love them. But all my friends know. You know, why are we not treating the last 3 days as if it really is your last 3 days? I was in a hotel in Florida waiting to go on, you know, to drive up to the studio, which by the way, that studio is unbelievable. So it's 20 minutes away. I'm in Delray Beach, sequestered. And I caught myself looking in the mirror and asking that same question. Not 3 days. But are you living every day like it's your last day? Like, I'm not here to apologize for anything that comes out of my mouth on this podcast. My mother would be pissed because I dropped the MF word early. Sorry about that. She'd be pissed about that. But even then, she'd go, no, I could hear your passion and why you got the point across. Let me show you a picture answering that question. This is my mother. Okay? That was taken way back in the day. That was my mother a year before she passed away. And here is the photo that my sisters always tell me that I'm sick in the head for having. But I will tell you, let me find this picture. And I was the only brother who took a selfie with my mom in her casket and my dad in his casket because they passed away 6 months apart from each other. My sisters and brothers were like, what are you doing? And I said, guys, this moment where my mom and dad are in this casket, because we're going to all end up there. And that was 2 days before she passed. We're not all going to be like this for the rest of our life. That's my mom and dad on their honeymoon in Bermuda. We're not going to be like that. So you better get your shit in order. And your shit means do the minimal amount of selfish self-care. Quit worrying about what you look like. Look in the mirror. If you're 250 pounds of fat and you're looking at yourself every day, especially females, strip down, look in the mirror, close your blinds, of course, or else your neighbors are going to judge you. But you close your blinds and you look in the full-length mirror and look at your whole body and pick out the parts that you just don't like. And then sit there and just say this: I approve. Because no matter what, if that person was dying 3 days later and then they finally had their aha moment because death is at their door and they're trying to fulfill themselves at that point, fuck me, you've wasted your entire life. And I have clinic owners and clinic therapists who, I just had 2 of them quit. And they said, hey, this person's quitting, they're moving back home. I should have been pissed, but I literally said, I am so happy for them. Bye. And I already made 2 phone calls for another couple therapists to come on. I am not in the business of fulfilling your own needs. Neither are you, neither is anybody else. Neither is Tony Robbins, by the way. He's a strategist to help you discover how to find yourself. Because if you go into coaching and you haven't found yourself, you are being unfair charging other people that you're going to help them. I'm sorry. That's why psychologists, in my opinion, a lot of times are batshit crazy because they haven't figured their own shit out. And I'm not judging them. Neither has anybody else. You got to figure out who you are to qualify you to help other people. And for me, the last 3 days of my life, dude, I'm doing it right now. If right now, boom,
living it.
That was it.
Love it, bro. Dude, it's so epic to have you, man. It's been such a plethora of knowledge. Do you have any last comments, concerns, or statements you want to share?
You almost said you have any last words, and I'm thinking he knows something about it. He got my last day of my 3 days, and I didn't know it yet. Holy cow. This is going to go out to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I expect to hear from thousands and thousands and thousands of you. It's just that simple. It's like Liam Neeson. I will find you.
I love it.
Special set of skills.
Bless you, bro. Love you, man. Let's stay in touch and check out Brian Bradley on Instagram, everyone. Talk to you soon, bro.